E39 Source, hello and welcome to San Diego, California, where today we're working on a 2006 BMW E60 M5. I had originally filmed the bumper removal DIY, and due to technical complications, those clips are permanently lost, no matter how long I've spent trying to recover them. Anyways, we have a September of 05, I believe that's the first month production, as I said, E60 M5. So instead of a DIY removal, we're doing a DIY installation in hopes that you can see all the steps in this video well in reverse order. You should be able to still figure out how to get it on and off the car. It's really a simple procedure. So we had taken it off to have it repainted. It has since been repainted. Here it is in Silverstone Metallic 2. Looks fantastic. Paint match appears to be good. It's not on the car yet, so we'll soon see. But before we get started with reattaching it, I'm going to show you, essentially you're just going to need a socket set, a T25 Torx is going to be very helpful, as well as obviously your normal screwdrivers and hammers or any tools like that you might need. The grills need to come out of the bumper. That'll be one of our first steps today, but one of your last. These are all the screws we've had to take out. Most of them are simply 8 or 10 millimeter or the Torx 30. Bunch of pieces of trim, PDC harness, headlights, headlight brackets. Pay no attention to that, that's from an E39. All of this stuff though is really quite simple and straightforward. So starting off, we're going to be putting all of the trim back in our bumper. That's going to include the lower front grille, the 4 PDC sensors, the PDC wiring harness. Something to note is the harness, it's a two-part harness. One part goes from the module I presume to be in the trunk up to the front of the car, and that actually dead ends on the passenger side with simply a connector. This is your headlight connector. I zip tied these here so they didn't fall out. The PDC harness connector here is this purple and black one. So that will disconnect from the cable that lives in the bumper where the sensors plug into. So we're going to reinstall those 4 sensors. The cable, there's actually clips in the bumper where the cable is going to seat. It's very self-explanatory. And then we'll talk about how the bumper is going to go on the car. Here's the back side of the bumper all ready for reassembly. Did a few steps here. The lower grille snaps in and out with just a bunch of the body colored clips. You're going to pull those outwards and you'll see it's very straightforward how this is all going to pop out. There's a total of maybe 10 of those. No hardware, it just presses in and snaps into place. Same thing with your kidney grills. There's these black tabbed clips that are just going to push all the way through until they snap, and then they will stay. PDC sensors, simply push in if you have those. I think all the M5s came with it. To remove them though, you'll just pry these 2 tabs apart and pull. Sensor will come right out. Note the wiring harness is just a typical BMW clip on this side to press the clip and pull it out. The harness itself stays in the bumper. Note that it's got little clips every couple inches that keep it up and flush against the bumper so it doesn't get in the way of any of the mounting hardware. So just run it all the way over, noting that the connector that's going to plug into the car needs to be on the passenger side. If you are like my dad and I and you hate, I don't know, every 5th time your windshield washer fluid comes on, these things come flying out of your front bumper and coat your whole front of the car in washer fluid, you can actually disable that. So here's the washer reservoir in front of the driver's front fender. There are 2 pumps in it if you look on the back. The pump closer to the outside can be disabled simply by removing the wiring harness for it. We tested it. The one up for the windshield still works. It will no longer come out of the front and cover your whole front of the car in water. So just pull the power lead to that. The computer doesn't know about it. It will not set off any warnings. Pull it off, maybe zip tie it to something so it doesn't rattle around, and be done with that problem. So wiring that we need to be mindful of. Passenger side PDC sensor or PDC harness. Hold that out of the way and make sure you can get it once the bumper gets set up on here. Same thing with the headlight wires. There's 2 for each side. There's the huge harness, then there's a small one. This looks like the leveling information sensor. I would suppose that's the harness for that, as well as main power. So just get those up out of the way. Leave them here under where the brackets would be so we can get to that. We're going to line the bumper up on the front of the car. Watch out that you do not hit into your fenders. And then the first 2 bolts we're going to install are 2 T25s in the brake duct inlets. You'll see the acceptor for that bolt is right there. T25s. After getting it lined up, there's a couple things that we need to tighten down. The lining up procedure, there's this black bracket. Ours has now been painted Silverstone blue. But if you see right here, there's these two fingers, if you will, that need to sit up on top of the fender. So you have to work with that a little bit. And there's a third one all the way in the back. I don't know if there's enough light back there or not. Right behind that screw acceptor, that also needs to sit inside the fender. That's responsible for your alignment out here. Notice the gap is bigger than it used to be. That's because we have not tightened down the two 8mm closer to the front and the one 10mm bolt closer to the rear. These bolts are screwed in from the bottom up. So good luck with those. They're a lot of fun. We had to take the headlight brackets out to get better access to that. Couple extensions, use quarter drive tools, and you'll be able to get that same deal on this side. Then we need to replace a total of 7 T25 bolts. There's a piece of trim here that you'll need to remove. It just pops up. But there's 1, 2, 3 in the center, 4 and 5. And then your other 2 are down here in the brake ducts. One there and one on the other side in the same location. Okay, so working from here, the two 8mm bolts are these two right here that, as I said before, thread in from the bottom. You're going to work from the engine bay on that. My tool setup is a quarter drive 8mm socket paired to a quarter drive ratchet. They're actually, once you get them started from below, then you can come up top and turn them from the top. They're not a tight thread. When they start to get tight, put the ratchet on them and tighten them down a little bit. It wasn't actually too bad. The 10mm, you're going to service that from the fender liner here. You might need to move the fender liner around a little bit. I had to push this one quite a bit towards the front of the car. I apologize for the lighting here. We're looking right into California sunshine. But it's there. It's a big 10mm, and that's the one that you're seeing the top of all the way in the back, right there. So get all those tightened down. Before you do tighten those last couple quarter turns to get them tight, check your alignment, make sure you've got a nice gap. This here is about the same. You don't want that to be too jarring, and this one appears to have come along pretty well. I'm about to do the same thing over here. You'll see the 3 empty acceptors, 1, 2, and I did already get that 10mm in there in the back. So that's where your alignment's going to be adjusted for the bumper fitment. And I'm going to actually take this opportunity right now to plug in my PDC harness. Covering the 5 center T25's Torx bolts, there is a piece of plastic trim which simply snaps into place. Removing it was a little tricky. You'll see these tabs on the end. You kind of have to press those in towards the center and then pry it out. For the assembly process, we're just going to line it up by sight and then smack it with the palm of your hand to seat those down into position. On top of that, you're going to find there's just 2 pieces of rubber stripping. Those are just going to slide on from the back towards the front. Nothing holds those on except pressure fit. This is the headlight bracket. Those 2 acceptors you're looking at are held on with more T25 bolts, and they're going to go into that primary bracket right there. 1 bolt in the center of your screen and the other one there. They will be responsible for holding the headlights. Simply plug in your headlights again with the 2 connectors and then enjoy trying to get them to fit again. It's pretty tough. You've got to move them around a lot. Eventually it'll just drop into place. You won't know what did it. There's a T25 here, a T25 here. Down there about a mile is a 8mm, and down there about a mile is an 8mm. Let me add that this little screw cover cap here that protects where your light bulbs and the electronics are inside the light, it needs to be removed prior to removal and then installed after the installation. So when you're taking these in and out, have that cover off. Only put it back on once the light's already been seated in the car. Same deal over here, and that is our finished product. Very fresh. Here would be our final product. It probably took a total of about 90 minutes to put it on, and about that to take it off. If you run into any hood level issues, there are some rubber screws on the inside that you can turn clockwise to tighten up those tolerances. You can also adjust the 5 bolts on the top part of the bumper right there for reinstallation, but really removal and installation is just as simple as a bunch of brackets and screws and Torx and a little bit of order of operations. So turned out pretty well. It's got a nice fresh paint job now and will hopefully last another 51,000 miles, as that's what this car has. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments, subscribe, and we'll talk to you in a future video. Bye-bye.